What's going on, folks? Thank you for joining me for another episode. All around, as you can see, the Battle of the Georgias went down once again as George Mason coming in at 17-1. Battle GW came in at 12-6, and George Mason at the you can say it's a little scared from GW down the stretch. They survived to defeat GW 69-64. George Mason was led by Riley Allenspach, who's playing at a all A10 level, man. Just reliable, always a double machine, man. He finished with tied for a game high 18 points, 12 rebounds, had some big clutch free throws down the stretch to keep George Mason on the front when GW was hitting shots to stay close. Masai Troutman added 14 points, big first half. He had 9 in the first half. And Kory Mincy just did a little bit of everything, adding 13.6 rebounds and 4 assists. GW was led by Gary Johnson, who, as I said, finished with tied for game high 18 points. Another center that will be on our all A10 selection for sure. Rafael Castro finished with 17 points and 12 rebounds, and Trey Autry added 12 points and 5 rebounds. Spirit of the game started off strong, well, ideal for George Washington. They jumped out to 11-6 lead to start the game. They feasted off of George Mason's turnovers. George Mason had 3 turnovers. They also weren't hitting shots. They were missing a lot of 3-pointers, which created long rebounds. And we all know long rebounds lead to instant fast breaks. And that's how GW was able to, build that lead. They got out of ran, and Castro was dunking, and, Jones and Gary Johnson and Autry and all those little guys, they were scoring at will off of George Mason mistakes. Later, at the 13-minute mark, Lou Hunger made a couple free throws to put GW up 15-6 as Mason was still trying to find their rhythm offensively. Then George Mason, as every game and as every team usually does, found their rhythm and got on a run. Went on a run. George Mason responded with a 17-7 run to take a 23-22 lead after a Fat Hill lay-in at the 7:42 mark. Later on, the offensive rebound Manuel Kanga found Kory Mincy for a wide open 3-pointer to put George Mason up 5, 33-28 with 3:15 left in the first half. And if you were expecting GW to go on a run to close the first half, it didn't happen. The Patriots ended the first half holding GW scoreless over the last 3:13 of the half, as they took a 38-30 lead, had full control going in the half, full momentum, especially being at home. But George Washington, they started the second half just like they started the game on an 11-5 run, thanks to back-to-back triples from Trey Autry to cut the Patriots lead to 2, 43-41 to 15-38 mark. GW deflection led to a 3-pointer for Tyrone Marshall Jr. to finally give GW the lead once again, 48-47 with 13:40 left. Both teams were scoreless for nearly 3 minutes, just a back and forth affair, defensive battle. Neither one could kind of get any momentum offensively, get any rhythm to score. But then Castro scored at the 10-18 mark to kind of break that scoreless streak for both teams. Gary Johnson, was having himself a game. His layup cut the deficit to 2, 56-54, and gave him a game high 18 points on 8-11 from the field with 6:19 left in the game. And then it was just a back and forth affair, but it was a hell of a sequence to end the game between the rivals. But ultimately, clutch free throws from who I feel will be an all A10 center selection. Riley Allenspach had a smart play that resulted in a game-sealing land by point guard Kory Mincy, who should get all A10 honors as well. Helped the Patriots survive for a 69-64 win. And what I mean by smart play, GW had a foul, and Kory Mincy got the ball, but he caught it at an angle where he could get downhill and get the lay-in and seal the game instead of just kind of catching it in the backcourt, waiting to be fouled, where he can go to the free throw line. And not to say that he can't, not to say that he's not able to hit clutch free throws. He's a pretty good free throw shooter. But obviously, if you can just get downhill and get to the land, then that's obviously that's just ideal. You know what I mean? Um, Look, George Mason. The difference, the difference in what I'm saying, for the difference in what I'm seeing from George Mason compared to a lot of teams that they've played, and the reason why they're now 18-1 after the win over George Washington is the fact that their guard play is is elite. Like it's no getting around it. Their guard play is they guard play. They know how to win games. They know how to produce. They know how to they know how to control the game. They know how to make players better, and they can do a variety of things regardless of their size. They can defend. They can dribble pass. They can shoot. They're smart. They have high IQ. They're selfless. Like if one player has it going, they're gonna find him. They're gonna they've shown they can deliver in clutch moments, free throws. They're tough minded. They're a bunch of guys that just know how to win, and that's what you kind of saw down the stretch. One big thing that happened down the stretch was Tyrone Marshall with GW had a chance to go for the tie or an attempted tie. He threw it out of bounds, and that's the little things, miscommunication during the play, what have you. Those are the little things that separate being 18-1 and now I believe 12-7 for George Washington. Just those little instances that you can't recover from, especially late in the game, and that's why seeing George Mason over the course of the season, especially over the last couple of games in person, they just find a way, and you got to tip your hat to their guard play, but also the Allenspach. He's just Mr. Reliable. He's Mr. Reliable when all things fail. When they're struggling offensively, they can't make shots, and they're just struggling to find a rhythm offensively. Pull up a George Mason game and just see what Tony Sand usually calls. Get the ball in the honest spot, and we'll figure it out from there. And it's not just that. He can also pass. He also makes good decisions. He's not going to throw up any type of wild shot. And that's another thing. He stays within himself. Like he's not going to take a shot that he's not comfortable taking. And again, it goes back to playing winning basketball. Those are winning things. Like it's a difference between just taking a shot and taking a good shot, which is your shot. It just is. And a lot of people don't want to, accept that. They just think just throwing something up there is just as good. But doing that, just throwing anything up there, can cost you games. And that's what you're seeing between opponents and George Mason at this point of the season. George Mason will hit the road to face 10-8 Rhode Island Saturday, January 24th at 2 p.m. And GW will host 13-6 Richmond Saturday, January 24th at 3 p.m. But before we go, just some more notes to kind of emphasize what was going on throughout the game. Turnovers were pretty much even, both teams. Even though George Mason got off to a rough start, George Mason had 13 turnovers, GW had 12. But the points off the turnover, like I said, was the difference. And a lot of that came at the beginning of the game. GW scored 21 points off of 13 George Mason turnovers. Rebounds were even, dead even, 32. And you should expect that when you got two all A10 all-conference caliber bigs in the paint rumbling with one another. It's going to pretty much be a standstill in a lot of ways, even though they play two different styles of basketball. Second chance points, dead even. You know what I mean? 9-9. But the bench points was heavily in favor of George Mason, 19-7, and a big part of that was because of Fat Hill, who's an X factor. He's an X factor, man. He really is like a sixth starter, which is what a sixth man is, but he can start for most teams in the country. 11 points, 4 for 6 from the field, 3 or 4 from the free throw line, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. Super quick, shifty, fast. A natural scorer, but he can also make plays. Very smart. has improved a lot as a free throw shooter. Coming into George Mason, transferred from the previous college, he was struggle. I think his coach said he was shooting in the 50s or 60s coming in, but he's hit some big free throws as of late to help George Mason be where they are at 18-1, man. But he's an X factor, man, because he's a tough cover, man. He could, man, in transition, he's tough to cover because of his speed and quickness, his toughness, his shiftiness, man. He could find out. He puts the ball in the basket. And he's just one of those natural, instinctive scorers that's just hard to deal with, man. But he's disciplined. He's poised. He don't really get out of control, and that's what a lot of players who have similarities as far as how they can score the ball don't have, and that's what separates him. And so when he comes in the game, it's obviously and always it's just an automatic shift when he checks in, and teams got to account for him, and it disrupts them. Then on defense, he's tough, he's quick, he's smart on that end. So he's just a playmaker, man. He makes a difference on both ends of the floor, man. And he's a big reason why George Mason has had the success that they've had thus far. Points in the paint, 32-28, pretty much even GW favor. Fast break points, 15-14. GW favor, obviously, the start of the game, they got off to a huge start in that category. But here's the thing. 18 assists for George Mason, 13 assists for GW. So 18 assists on 24 made field goals for George Mason and 13 for 24 made field goals for George Washington. That's what I mean by the guard play, man. It's a balanced attack. It's hard to, certain players. You got King Allenspach, Kory, Troutman. You got to be careful with Jari, who's playing like just this ultimate setup guy, defensive head, leader in the backcourt, but he can put points on the board as well. Like he took over the game in the win over VCU at home week and a half ago. So he's capable. We've seen in games throughout the season where Kanga, the freshman, he put points on the board, getting near double, scoring in double figures. I thought Devin Booker gave him some good minutes, hit a big three, came in defensively, and he made an impact as well, man. So look, it's a balanced attack. Tony Skinn knows his team. He's obviously an excellent coach. He's plugging them in different situations where they could thrive and help the team win, and that's been the difference in the game, thus far. But that tells the tale right there with the ball movement. 18 assists on 24 made field goal. It's like, who do you guard? And that means they're selfless, they're unselfish, and they're making the right reads that leads to good shots. That's hard to defend for 40. And that's why you saw George Mason at the end pull away. You know what I mean? And win the game, man. So, it's been fun, just watching this run. Obviously, they will more than likely see each other down the road, especially in, when conference play, which is fast approaching. Jeez, it is just when that pops back up, man. But with that being said, man, I want to thank you guys for joining me for another episode of All Around. I'll be back soon with another edition, man, as we continue to track, see if George Mason can keep going. Also, get over the GW recap as I covered GW more exclusively. I always have season credentials, been doing that starting with 2013, 2014 season. This is my 13th year covering GW basketball. So I've been doing it for a while. So you can check out more, I say exclusive coverage of GW basketball on that side of things with GW recap all around. Dibble dab on all levels of basketball, depending on the game. And last night was a game with George Mason GW, man. Big rivalry game that goes back decades. So I want to thank you guys for joining me, man. Like I said, George Mason, 18-1, man. Making a lot of noise and making a lot of national folks pay attention, which they should. A10 is always a quality conference. I hate to put politics behind everything when it comes to seeding and everything that goes into the tournament, I believe you should reward winning. And I get it when your conference championship, that's neither here nor there. But I felt like even last year, I felt like both VCU and George Mason should have made the NCAA tournament, especially over some of these other leagues. I mean, they produce NBA players. They got some of the best coaches in the country, some of the top players as well. Guys, they go on and do a lot of great things at the pro level. That should be the testament and gauge of how strong your conference is compared to others, man. So hopefully the selection committee, I see St. Louis doing their thing. Dayton is always up there doing their thing. You can't always forget about, got other programs like VCU, Richmond, and all them. They're dangerous as well. That's why the conference tournament is going to be very interesting. But and you gotta understand with George Mason winning like they are, along with like St. Louis as well. But you gotta understand, you got to throw records out the window when they play every game. I don't care if they play in a team that hasn't won a game. They're gonna play George Mason like it's their NCAA championship game, just to beat them, just to say we beat a team that's just tearing everybody up right now. You know what I'm saying? So it becomes a tougher game than normal if, like, say George Mason came in, they were like, I don't know, 18-1, they were like 9-9 or something like that, 9-10, 10-9 or something like that. You know what I mean? It'd be a totally different game. But when you win it like they are, everybody's hunting for you, and that's a different type of. I don't like saying pressure because it's basketball. Basketball is not really pressure, but it's a different type of, understanding. Let's just say that you must have, and focus that you must have to continue to win under those conditions, and it's tough. And very few have experienced it, man. You gotta understand it. But George Mason, so far so good, they've done it, man. So should be fun. Fun next few weeks as they finish out the regular season and gear up for A10 conference tournament play, man. So again, thank you. I want to thank you all for joining me for another episode of All Around. And I'll talk to you later.